Welcome back for part 2 of this 3-part series on your 5 years to freedom. So, we've talked about in part 1, we talked about actually shifting your mindset so that you're working on your business rather than in it. So, now that your business is running like a well-oiled machine, what is that next part? Well, the next part is getting more into this financial freedom piece. And what we're going to discuss next, if there's one piece that you could take away from this, this will be it. You'll hear a lot of people in the investment world, especially in real estate investing, ask, what's your number? That's a phrase that is used a lot. What's your number? So when you're hearing that, what you were talking about is your financial freedom number. And this is pretty easy. You want to take everything that you have to pay every month. Every bill, gas, groceries, you want to have money put away, into a 6 months worth of or 1 year's worth of expenses, all of that, whatever that number is, every month you need to have X amount of dollars to pay all your bills, X amount of dollars to pay for any gas, groceries that's not a set amount. If you have to pay for college coming up for a child or for yourself, whatever the case may be, you need to think of what that number is that you have to hit every month. That is your financial freedom number. That's the number that you must hit with passive income in order to reach that financial freedom that we're talking about. So, if there's one piece that you take away from here, you need to sit down and really think and really dig in. Maybe go back through your last couple bank statements and look, okay, here's how much we've spent every month, every streaming service, every oil change, everything has to be factored in for this to work appropriately. For me personally, I took my number and then I added a big chunk on top. Nothing specific, just saying, okay, we want to cover not only our bills, but we want to cover the lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to, right? It's no good, and this is where some people have discrepancies. Dave Ramsey, I think, has a lot of great advice on how to get out of debt and how to think about your credit and credit card debt, any sort of bad debt, and get out of it. But I think he's a little too conservative when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So what we're talking about is not just living broke to pay off debts. We're talking about getting enough money coming in the door, regardless of whether we work or not, to live the lifestyle that we want. So if you're not there now, that financial freedom number may be higher than what you would need it to be right now. So you could figure out what it would be right now, and then you could build on it, right? If you have monthly bills that total $6,000 a month, but you want to live in a bigger place, eventually you're going to have to pay for a child's college. Maybe that financial freedom, instead of just saying, okay, $6,000 a month for bills, another $1,500 for expenses, let's just call that, instead of $7,500, $8,000. Well, maybe you say, look, I'm going to want to live in a bigger house. I'm going to want to take 2 vacations a year. I'm going to want to join this golf club because I enjoy golf. Whatever that is, get that magic number, not just the number to survive. Then that's where you start. Build on that number. Build a lifestyle you want. The whole point of this is not to just be able to scrape by. And I see a lot of people doing the bare minimum because that's what it takes. And like I said, Ramsey's a big proponent of that. I think he has a lot of good ideas, but I think there's a lot of areas where I have a lot of disagreements with some of his teachings. Because I just think it's not the life we're meant to live, right? A debt-free existence is great. But if you have to eat ramen and beans and rice just to get there for years on end, that's not appealing to me. I'm looking for living the life that I want within my means. I'm not saying, you should go out and that number needs to be as high as it can be right off the bat. You want that number to grow over time. And you want to build it to the minimum first. Now okay, the baseline is taken care of. No matter what happens, I have put away 12 months worth of my expenses in a savings account as just a just in case fund. And I have all of my monthly bills to a T coming in passively. So that's how you find that number, and then that's how you build on that number. So the reason, we talk in particular about Dave Ramsey is because he's teaching a lot of old methods, a lot of methods that exists in a world that, I mean, frankly, doesn't really exist that much anymore. In the past, you were able to retire. We've always been taught you grow up, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good, steady paying job, you put a portion of your money away every single month until you retire, and then when you retire, you get this pension, plus you have Social Security, plus you have this nest egg that you've built up in either a 401k or an IRA. Well, guess what? Most companies don't offer pensions anymore. Unless you work for the government or unless you work in one of the few companies that actually provides a pension, that's out the door. Social Security, it exists right now, but there's no guarantee that that continues to exist for, if you're somebody my age, in my early 40s, there's no guarantee that in 15, 20, 25 years that Social Security exists in the same form that it exists now. And Social Security is meant to provide, the basics, right? It's not going to even be the amount that you earned most recently in your job. It's going to be a percentage of that. And so that's not really the lifestyle you got accustomed to having. And then building this big pile of money, I mean, that part, putting money away in an IRA and in a 401k, that's not terrible, but that shouldn't be your only means. I mean, I saw it personally. My dad had been putting money away, and he had this plan that, hey, it's going to be great. As soon as I retire, I'm going to have $1 million in the bank. Well, then 2008 happened, and the big stock market crash took away half of that retirement savings. And at that point in time, there wasn't enough time remaining in his working career for him to be able to rebuild that account back up to where it was before. So he was fortunate. He does have one of those jobs that had a pension. He can get Social Security. He's not reached the age yet where he wants to take it, but he still does have the retirement put away. But he still chooses to work here and there while he just kind of rides this out. So, I've seen it from a personal standpoint that that's not always the best method to get things done. So one of the big books that you should read regarding this mindset is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's kind of the investor's Bible. Robert Kiyosaki is the author. He talks about in the book his rich dad and his poor dad. His poor dad is his actual biological father who has the same mindset that most of us were taught growing up. The one I just mentioned. You go to school, get good grades, get the steady paying job, high paying job, put money away, retire. His rich dad was somebody who was much more entrepreneurial minded, and he got jobs from a young age doing work, took that money, put it to work in buying businesses or buying real estate and making that money work for him. And that's the key. The key to all of this is not just earning the money and sitting on it. It's earning the money, putting it somewhere, and you should diversify this. I'm not saying everything should go into just real estate or into just buying businesses or into just an IRA or a 401k. There is a place for all of that if you're doing it properly. You want to have some safer bets, because some of the stuff that we talk about on these alternative investments with commercial real estate, with business acquisitions, there's risk attached to it. The returns can be much greater, but there is most certainly risk attached. So I don't want to come in here and say that you need to do this because this is the end-all be-all, because there is a certain amount of risk attached to all of it. So you want to have some placed in different areas, and that's why when you hear the phrase diversification of your portfolio, it is taking that money and putting it into different avenues of earning wealth so that if one market is better, then the other market balances it out. And so you're never completely reliant on one thing. So we talked a little bit on the last episode of the series about the mindset shift. And one of the things that we talked about is kind of working on your business rather than in it. And some of that comes from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He has something called the cash flow quadrant, where there's these 4 quadrants, and depending on where you lie, kind of talks about how you earn your money and how your money works for you. Most of us start in the top left, which is called the employee part of the quadrant, and we all start off as employees. We give our time for money, whether that's on an hourly basis, whether that's on a salary basis, whether that's on commission. at some point we are working for somebody else who is paying us for our time and our efforts. So that's how most of us enter the workforce. We talk about being a business owner, and that seems like being a business owner would seem to be how we earn money passively, but that's not really how it works. There's a section called self-employed, and that's where most people start, especially in the blue-collar world. When you start a business, you may think, well, I own a business, I must be a business owner. But as we talked about in the last part, most of us start off as technicians who then started a business, and at that point in time, you are self-employed. You no longer work for anybody else, but you work for yourself. But you still have to work. If you don't do the work, then no money comes in the door and you don't continue to get paid. A true business owner is somebody who actually works above the business, working on the business, and that business, if they have to sit out for a day, continues to operate and continues to bring money in the door. That's when you've reached that true business owner status. And then in the bottom right of that quadrant is the investor, and that's the person who is literally only giving money, which then earns additional money. They're not part of any sort of the operations of whatever it is, that business, that commercial real estate project, whatever it is. They're just saying, this operator, this business owner, whatever it is, they just need capital to work this deal. And that's what being a passive investor is. You give money. Somebody needs capital to kind of help their project along, and they may not have the money for it, but they have the skills. They become the technicians and the managers in that particular business. So getting yourself from employee to self-employed to business owner to passive investor, that's how you work your way through the cash flow quadrant, and that's how you truly earn that financial freedom. So that's kind of what we've been talking about this episode. What's your number? Figure that out. Understand that that's what you're trying to reach. That's the number you're trying to hit. And it may change over time. You may sit now and think, oh my goodness, if I can have $10,000 a month coming in the door, then my life would be great. Everything would be amazing. I couldn't imagine possibly wanting more. But then once you reach a certain level, that mindset starts to shift again. And you say, okay, well, $10,000 barely covers bills, or maybe doesn't cover bills anymore. So now my number is more along the lines of, $25K a month or $50K a month. And that's okay. That number can change, but whatever that number is for you right now, that's what you're working toward. And then once you've achieved that, you can decide if you want to go above and beyond that. But part 2, this is a shorter episode. Figure out that financial freedom number for yourself, and then we can come up with the plan on how to get there in part 3. Talk to you then.